Welcome. We are glad you've joined us today. Many of you have been sitting in on our web calls over the last number of days. We recognize these are really unusual times, and unusual times cause us to sometimes do unusual things, and these web calls are one of those things, as we're not actually able to see many of you face to face like we would like to. Because of the circumstances that we find ourselves in, there's a lot of uncertainty in our world. So I invited a guest for today to talk a little bit about the whole aspect of stress and isolation and panic and fear that we're all experiencing at some levels given the uncertainty of our world. And so I've gratefully had the opportunity to have Dr. Dave Currie, who's a family therapist in counseling and works with people who are under stress all the time. And so Dave has been a long-term friend and client of ours. And so we're just going to have a conversation here over the next few minutes about some of the things that we're seeing. And we're going to get his expert advice in what ways can we adapt and adjust and survive, or maybe even thrive in the midst of the chaos. So Dave, welcome, and we're looking forward to this conversation in the next few minutes.
Yeah, well, I'm honored to be here, Brad. And the only thing I can think about is when you say we're going to thrive at this time, boy, that's a big leap. I mean, most of us are running in all kinds of levels of concern and fear and barriers and walls and isolation and all kinds of stuff. Thriving might be a little bit of a stretch, but maybe improving from the, getting buried by this would be a good place to at least frame it.
Certainly, let's start with survival, and then we'll move maybe to acceptance, maybe to thriving will be our end hope here. So
Okay.
in a period of time where we've got so much uncertainty, there's a number of emotions that are sort of colliding at a time like this. And let's just talk a little bit about what some of those things are that are colliding right now, which make our emotions more heightened and reactive than they would normally be, and then how those affect our relationships. So one of the things I think of right off the top, which really heightens our emotional sensitivity, is isolation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when we're robbed of our routine, everything gets messed up, right? If all of a sudden someone says you can't have breakfast at 8 o'clock, if that's your normal time, you have to have breakfast at 6, you're going, what? What's that all about? Just something simple like that messes us up. So when we talk about isolation and keeping distance and not going into work, or can't you go to this restaurant because it's closed, and when our routines are messed up, that throws us for a loop, just that in itself. Then we go to the isolation where I can't see my friend. I can't go play hockey. I mean, you and I lost our hockey together, right? We used to chew the fat and have a good visit, on Wednesdays, and we lost those things. And so there's a lot of stress that comes just from change of routine that I didn't have any say in. If I decided to have breakfast at 9 o'clock and made the change myself, then it's fine. But if you tell me I have to have breakfast now at 6 o'clock instead of 8, I'm bothered by that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so a cross between change your routine and this mandatory isolation is messing up a lot of people.
And then obviously, we throw into the mix of that isolation. The reason for the isolation is that there's a pandemic of health concerns, which is really filled with unknowns. It's unknown if I'm a carrier. It's unknown if you're a carrier.
Yeah.
It's unknown if my parents will actually get this and I can't see them. So there's this whole health side has really raised anxiety. You want to just speak to some of those issues as it relates to just health?
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing about this, I mean, let's just start with a word that we're starting to understand a little better, the word cancer. So 15, 20 years ago, cancer was a scary word. We didn't know as much about it. Now we're learning a little more about it, and it's not, yes, it's a scary thing, but we know some people survive, and okay. But when you use this word pandemic or the coronavirus. It's like there's a dinosaur that breathes fire around that corner. And you go, oh, I have never seen a dinosaur. What do you mean it breathes fire? There's so many uncertainties because we just don't know. We don't know if, I mean, yes, we read the things that, it's airborne this long and it, by touching and don't touch your eyes and wash lots. We have these general things, but, what is safe? Who is safe? How paranoid should I be? Should I be skeptical and wary of others? Who do I trust? Can I even trust my family? Should I get this virus? Because maybe I'll build up the antibodies. Am I too old now at 64 to get the virus and be safe? You see, all of these things are uncertainties, and those uncertainties, because we don't know, are like that fire-breathing dragon or dinosaur around the corner that we just never faced before. We don't know what to do. And so we have fear of the unknown, let alone legitimate health fears.
So obviously when psychologists rank the things that create the greatest number of anxiety in our life, clearly health is always one of those. Relationships is another one, and finances is another one.
Yeah.
And so what we've created in this situation is we can't see our friends to give us support. We have unknowns as it relates to our health.
Yes.
And then finances is a complete wreck in many circumstances. So we've got small business owners who have had to absolutely close the doors.
Yep.
They have no income whatsoever, but yet they have employees that need to be paid and rent that needs to be paid. So the anxiety and the stress goes up. Or you're a retiree and you're going like, my pensions look like they have been reduced significantly in a very short period of time, and that creates anxiety. And these are all colliding, aren't they?
Yeah, the financial losses are on many fronts. I have people I work with who have lost their job. I have people that I work with who have been laid off, caringly by their employees so they can get UI quicker. But we hopefully have you back, when this is over. Well, that uncertainty again of how long am I without my job? I've had people, one just today, canceled because, to be very honest, with the loss of job, I don't know if I can afford you as a counselor. Okay, but it might be the greatest stress period of their life because, what they had for, normal problems that needed to be dealt with, 3 weeks ago are now exacerbated by the job loss and now the pressures of having to stay home and, uncertainty about future income, getting their job back or not. Is their spouse going to lose their job too? I got somebody who told me yesterday that they're concerned that both he and his wife, he's lost his job and she might lose hers this week. And now what are they going to do? And we don't know how long it's for, let alone the investment side, like people that, are close to retirement like myself. Well, I don't like to see my portfolio drop by 20%. I mean, I got a great financial advisor. I'm not worried about that. But the truth is, all these things, the financial questions, the uncertainties about income, job, investments, these are hard to take. We will spend less money though. That's interesting. We're not going places. We're not going to movies and sporting events. We're not, spending frivolously. We're actually hunkering down a little bit, and there's less to spend things on. You can only buy so much stuff on Amazon, and get it coming to the door,
So that might be the silver lining in this, that in a time period when our income is significantly restricted, so is our opportunity to use our money. And maybe there is a little bit of a silver lining there. So Dave, when we have these emotions that are colliding like they are, what does it do to our body? What are the warning signs that we should look for? Like I think of, appetite changes and how this much pressure can cloud our ability to make good judgments and to make good decisions. Give us your therapist advice on when stress mounts, the psychological and physical implications of all that.
Well, first of all, when there's an increase of stress, okay, like this whole virus thing and all the implications are creating on us, we have to do what we can to limit the source of the stress. So for many people, especially those who are given to greater anxiety on a regular day-to-day basis, some people are not as prone to anxiety. Some people are prone to stress and anxiety a lot more. They go there, they worry quicker and all that. It would be really, really wise to be careful not to marinate yourself in all the latest virus news. You can be obsessed about hearing the latest, and people tend to focus on the dark stories, and just like the news tends to carry 90% of the dark stuff, about murders this and car accidents that and everything, and they try to end with a little happy story about a kid feeding a dog or something. Well, be really careful in your world of stress and anxiety that you don't feed the monster by being obsessive with reading the latest. And you can get stuck on Facebook for 45 minutes and reading all this, the worry this, and I heard that, and I heard this, and did you know that? And your whole mentality can be completely inundated. Your brain can be overwhelmed by the amount of negative input. So I would tell people, cut back how much you're listening to all the dark stuff as a general rule to face the anxiety. Because if you're feeding on it more and more, limit the Facebook, only watch some of the news. Don't read, 20 different journal articles about the virus. Read one. Be informed, but don't be phobic about it. So that's going to help a lot because you'll limit that. On all these things, Brad, it's really important that people just keep a balance. For instance, you can go outside and go for a walk, you and your spouse. I mean, you got to kind of steer away from people. I recognize that, but there are healthy things you can do, and just eating healthy. Like, be careful. Sometimes when they get anxious, they start grabbing the closest junk food, right? And so they're pounding back a bag of chips, or they're, here I am drinking my Coke right now. But, but the point is, you got to be careful that in your worry and anxiety that you don't kick into unhealthy addictions. You need positive addictions, things that if you repeated them are going to put you in a better place, like going for a walk or doing a small set of push-ups and sit-ups or whatever, just to stay mobile and healthy, to play some game and turn off the Facebook and don't get all this input, right? Because when your mind is so fixated on worry, anxiety, you cannot think your best.
Right.
You
So
can't.
so what I'm seeing is that people that are allowing this to take over them are being caught in bad judgment cycles, being caught saying things or contemplating things that under normal, more calm situations would be ridiculous, and they would even admit they're ridiculous.
Yeah.
But when panic sets in, it clouds their judgment and their ability to actually make good decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me comment about stress here. A certain amount of stress is actually good, right? For instance, 3.5 weeks ago, we were in Israel, and it was in the evening, and Donald and I were walking on a street of Jerusalem at that time of night, and Donald said, I appreciate the way you're so vigilant of what's going on around you. Because we walk together, and I have this hypervigilance. I want to know where the people are in the street. I want to know who's walking behind us. I want to just check access points of who could come into our path. I'm just being cautious, right? Now, there's a certain level of awareness and anxiety that's good to have for just safety, right? If you're going to take an exam, a moderate level of anxiety is good. If you go in, too casual, you won't be as sharp. But if you go overwhelmed, I'm going to fail this and everything, you'll never be your best. So moderate anxiety, self-awareness, and even on this thing here, to be aware, to be balanced in your assessment of what are the risks and what is wise is good. But when you start to obsess, when you start to get over worried and it starts to shape you in weird ways and you're reacting unhealthy, that's when you need a balanced person. Am I being crazy here? And if your friend says yes you are, then listen to your friend. Like, right. For me, financially, we had a talk here about a week ago. when we first started to talk about this, and we were just talking as friends, and you started to go in about this thing about finances, and I said, Brad, I didn't call you as my financial advisor. I called you as my friend. I don't even worry about my finances because you're doing that for me. And I've learned to trust trusted voices. And this is what people listening need to do. You can get so worried about it that I can't even be close to my wife. I can't even be close to my grandkids who I've been with a whole bunch, right? Well, no, you can be. You have to be wise. You need to be cautious, but you limit it to that small family unit at this time, but get other people to speak into your life. If you're being over fearful and reactionary and you're hard to deal with, like if I'm already an impatient person, which I am, if I under stress and get more sharp and more edgy and got more of a tone, then I need to be listening to my spouse or my kids saying, hey, Dad, chill a bit, Dad. Because we need to be letting others speak into our life. And that's why sometimes counselors are helpful, because they're going to give us perspective, whether it's financial counseling, which you do, or whether it's, life counseling and coaching on relationships that I do. But stress brings out sometimes the worst of us, which it could bring out something better if we stay healthy.
So one of the things that I often use the example of the difference between fear and panic. And I use the illustration that fear is a really good and helpful response. It is an alertness to danger that exists or could exist, and allows you to evaluate that danger in a reasonable way. Panic is the opposite. It's where there may or may not be a danger, but you're out of control now. Now you're actually letting whatever that danger is in your life control you, and it will, if it's real, will destroy you because you don't have a clear mind to react to it. And if it's not real, it will destroy you in another way because it will paralyze you from doing things that you would normally do in a productive way.
Right.
So fear is fine. And when we have as much uncertainty as we do in the world today, both financially and from a health perspective, fear is a normal good reaction, and I don't think either of us are saying that we shouldn't be fearful. But when it moves to panic or irrationality, that's where the danger comes, and that's where we're really wanting to, I think, advise people to be really cautious and to find people of sound mind and calm spirit who can help us to take us back from the panic level to a reasonable amount of thoughtful fear.
Yeah. I embrace that, Brad. The idea here of using my awareness, using my concern, call it fear, whatever, to allow me to be my best, right? Because I am aware of these concerns and have these fears, I can make better choices. But if I let that fear flood me, then I lose perspective, go into the panic mode, as you said, and that, of course, makes me feel out of control, makes me feel that I'm in danger, that I got to react right now, and it's usually not going to be the best thing.
So, Dave, you are, from a financial perspective, one of the people that I would say is in the category of the most vulnerable. Why would I say that? I would say that because you are sort of nearing retirement. You're certainly nearing retirement age. Knowing you, you may never slow down, but you're nearing retirement age, and we have a financial crisis. And so you're living firsthand the question, like, what does this mean to me? How are you dealing with that personally? How are you getting over that? How are you aligning the fear that's real with your reality of your age and stage?
Yeah.
And what can people learn about that?
Well, I think if people have been wisely trusting a good advisor for a period of time, you will have realized over the years that to ride out complicated periods is the best thing. And I literally, when we talked last week, I did not even have the slightest fear. I didn't want to bring up finances with you, even though, that's what you do with me, amongst other things. But but you beat me at golf too often. That's a deep-seated problem. That makes me more than fearful. It makes me
Actually, that's a really good part about this relationship.
yeah, shut up. Okay, but here's the thing that's critical. For me, I've learned that wisdom is riding out these times. I can't let a dip. There's been some real dips in the years that you have advised me, and if you look over the long term, those dips are always outweighed by recovery sometime down the road. And and yes, I'm nearing retirement, but I also have learned the staying steady. And you know, we have worked of having what I would call a balanced portfolio in my world. So I have some a little more risky, some a little more stable, some middle ground. So we have a balanced portfolio. I believe that's healthy. I stay the course. I don't make a bunch of big changes. I certainly don't make any changes without your advice. So I really just say I'm going to stay the course. I mean, only God knows my days on earth here. But you know, I'm likely, you know, if all things are equal, I'm likely to be around another 15 plus years. And so, you know, having a big dip here now because of this crazy health crisis, you know, it's going to recover, and I'm going to just ride it out. And so, you know, yeah, you can talk to an advisor about anything we need to do, and you know, if there was some advice that you think would be appropriate, I know that you would give it to me. But right now, I don't worry because I stay the course, and I've seen over the years that is a wise thing to do.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Um, you have spent some part of your life in pastoral ministry, and so faith has obviously a place to play in this for many, many of the people that are going to be viewing this.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, for those who adopt a faith journey, what is your advice to them?
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because whether or not a person adopts a faith journey or right now is contemplating it, because these are crazy times, I would think it's an open discussion for anybody right now. But one of the things I think is critical is I like to remember that God is in control, not a virus. That anchors me. God didn't go for coffee and come back and go, oh my goodness, what happened while I was out for coffee? Like God is aware of this. There have been difficult times over and over again in the course of history. And God told me that if I trust him, he doesn't necessarily create kind of a bubble wrap experience where as a Christian, I have no issues. Are you kidding me? People that have God in their life have as many problems as people who don't in most cases. But God said he'd walk with me through them. And so for me, I walk in this high sense of trust that even though the world feels out of control, it isn't really, because God still is control. And when I've given my life to him and I trust him, he becomes my anchor. He's bigger than this. I don't have to worry. God will guide me through this. And even if we get the virus and have to work through a hard time, God said he'd walk with me through even the valley of the shadow of death. I don't have to fear struggles and things. And so I like the fact that God is still God and the virus isn't. And I'm going to just day to day keep in mind that I'll just surrender to God. He wants me. Matter of fact, the beautiful thing about my faith, I believe, is it's what the tough times bring about in me, that I could be a more caring individual instead of a selfish individual, that I could be giving of my time. We were talking last night, Don and I, of just doing some baking and dropping it off at all the neighbors, just some cookies, and just say, no, we can't get together, but just want you to know we're thinking and praying for you too. Have a good day. Enjoy the cookies. And yes, we handed them to you on plates with gloves on. You know, I mean, like whatever, right? But just being an other-centered person and not being so self-absorbed as God wants us to think about the interests and concerns of others and how we can step in. So if we can balance the fact that God becomes an anchor through this time, and then secondly, what does God want me to do to be an encouragement to those in my world?
So
That really changes things.
that's what I'm hearing mostly from what you're saying, is that that faith journey has caused you to look outward instead of inward. And
Yeah.
I think as we're dealing with the stress issues, that's just a great way to deal with it anyways. If you
Mhm.
look for those around you who might need some encouragement or might need a little help,
Mhm.
it has this unusual way of taking the stress out of our own life and taking the thought process off of my issues, my problems, my fears.
Yeah.
And so, with or without faith as your anchor, that's just a great principle, regardless of how to deal with times like this.
Yeah. Well, you'll recall, Brad, in any of the different crises of the world, like for instance, in the bombing of the Boston Marathon, you recall the words "Boston Strong" came out.
Yes, exactly.
Do you remember that? And so
Yeah.
right now, at difficult times, we can hunker down and hide. And I'm not saying we should violate social isolation principles, but I'm saying we can isolate and be self absorbed, or we can be the best of humanity by caring for others, by doing acts. I mean, I had a lady in her neighborhood, knowing that we'd come back from overseas and we're on a 14-day isolation. Sent a message to us saying, "Hey, listen, because you're on that quarantine thing for 14 days, can we get you groceries?" Well, now our kids already done that for us, but it was such a nice thought, and she was actually a tenant living in the basement of a neighbor, and it
Mhm.
was I was thinking, oh my goodness, that's what we need to be doing,
Yeah, that's
and
the message, isn't it?
that's right, that's right.
So, Dave, just as we wrap up here, you are a client. What are the things that you would want from us as a financial advisor in a time like this? Is there anything that we should or could be doing that we can learn from to be able to support our clients better and through a period like this?
Well, first of all, you're not going to like my answer because I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to tell you what you're doing that I like.
That'll
Okay.
work. That'll
Okay,
work.
that'll work. But first of all, you're not silent. In the crisis, I want to know, hey, are we okay here? Now, all I need is just an email or a call. Hey, just so you know, Dave, blah, blah, blah. So you haven't been silent. You brought up the question, how you doing, Currie? Any questions you have? Okay, so that's number one. So I need my financial advisor not to be silent, not to go AWOL. Like, where did he go? I haven't heard from him. That's not good. Number two, even to open up discussions. Like, I know I got the email saying, if you want to call in and ask questions, we're going to have these times. That's brilliant. Like, that's really significant, right? And you bring steadiness and calmness because you've been doing this 400 years or whatever, and so your perspective is what I trust. And just to hear from you, I mean, because we're pretty close even outside the financial planning world, so I don't even think about whether or not I trust my financial planner. I just do. But for other people, I think for them to have access to you, for like even events like this, this is going above and beyond by giving people practical help like this. And so, accessibility, answering questions, yeah, those are the kind of things that keeping me informed, and giving me opportunity. There might only be 20% of your people that want to have a chat with you. The rest are fine. But that I know that Brad reached out and said I could have a set of questions answered at this time if I needed. And so I think that those are the things that help anchor me financially, because of your accessibility and the creative ways that you're just trying to keep us updated and informed.
Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us with your expertise. For our clients who are seeing this and those others who may find their way onto seeing this, I hope you found something of value here. I hope it helps you to reduce your fear, certainly, hopefully eliminate panic. Hopefully give you a few tools that would not be what you would necessarily think you're going to hear from your financial advisor, but we're certainly here to help each of you get through what we all know is an incredibly difficult situation. And so I want to thank Dave again for assisting us today in this conversation. And as always, if you need anything, we're here. We're going to be answering the phones, and we want to help you through this very difficult time in whatever way we possibly can. And so thank you again for for listening, and we look forward to serving you in the days ahead. Thanks so much.